Hey all, and welcome back to Radical Slice. My name is Eric. This is the next installment in my development of a Pico-8 game that vaguely resembles the old NES title, Kung Fu. On this installment, things are going to start to get a little bit wild. It starts off real tame. We're just going to add some graphical stuff. But by the end of the episode, we're going to be working on some special moves, some wild stuff. They don't look that wild yet, but I promise they'll get there. So sit back and enjoy this collection of new features. Small UI improvement that I've been meaning to make for a while, but as you can see here, I've finished the boss. Finished the boss. I have killed the boss. I'm standing at the end of the level, or I was, and there was really no indication that I was supposed to walk to the left to finish the level. So what I was thinking is just to kind of have like a little an arrow, maybe moving up and down with a little thing that says go to indicate that the player should walk to the edge of the screen. I think this is a pretty common thing that I remember seeing in games like Double Dragon. I feel like it was in Mighty Final Fight too. So yeah, just like a nice little like, hey, keep going and you'll finish the level. So let me just draw that now and see if I can make it look kind of nice. All right, I think this is looking pretty spiffy. Let me show you the sprites I drew first. Oops, let's make this a little bit bigger. So you can see I just drew like a red arrow with a white outline. Kind of going with the white and red color scheme that I'm using elsewhere. Maybe I should change the guy's black belt to white, but I don't know. I kind of like the way the black looks. So I wrote the text go. I wanted to be able to just like draw it rather than using the Pico font for this, because I figured it would be more compressed this way. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And yeah, I drew one for each direction because the levels can have different directions. So if we go back here, let me just take care of this boss first, and I'll show you how it looks like. And he's gonna like hit me in the head. Take care of that, and then bam. Okay, there you go. And I made it kind of move up and down a little bit to call extra attention to it. I don't know if I'm like completely attached to that pace of movement, but we'll go with it for now. Let me show you in code how this looks. So the area where I was adding the impact sprites not too long ago. Let me stop this so it's not just jiggling all the time. The impact sprites not too long ago. In this FX table, I decided to add arrows here too. And I suspect I'll only ever have the one arrow, but I was like, well, you never know. Maybe I'll want to have like some other UI indicators for some other reasons. So let me just make it a table here as well. And I put in this arrow offsets bit here. So this is kind of like how I'm making it shift up and down. I'm just adding this value to the arrow's Y position and cycling through this list of numbers, right? So it starts at 0. Positive numbers will make it move down, goes back up to 0, and negative numbers will make it move up, and then we'll cycle through it like that. I also gave arrows like a since last frame. I mean, I'm essentially using the same sort of animation approach that I was using for sprites, but rather than using different sprites, I'm just updating the Y position, right? So we have this since last frame value that's keeping track of how long it's been since the last time we adjusted the Y position, and the frame weight, which is just like a constant that's saying like wait this long until we shift the Y position again. And I'm keeping track of the offset index, which is like the index into that table. Hang on, let me show you. The index into this arrow offsets table. And I'm just modding that by the length of that table and adding 1 because again, table indices in Lua they start from 1 rather than from 0. And if I'm doing a modulus here, this is going to give me values from 0 to 9, whereas I want the values to be from 1 to 10. That'll give me all the indices into the table. And then I reset the last frame timer to, to reset the timer. No surprises there, I guess. And again, I'm just grabbing the sprite based on whether the level direction is going from right to left or from left to right. I'm also setting the X position, whether it's on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen based on the level direction. And here's where we offset the Y position. And that's pretty much it. No big surprises there. I think that was a pretty easy add, and like UI wise, it's nice. It's nicer. So I might tweak the timings to make it move faster or slower, but for now I'm pretty okay with how that looks. Okay, I was gonna go make some coffee, but before I do that, one other quick graphical change. I decided to change the way the sand looks and slightly change the positioning of the player and the enemies on the sand. So prior to this, I had like a black line on top of the sand, and the player would kind of walk on top of that, as well as the enemy sprites. But I updated that, so I removed the top kind of black dividing line, and I shifted the player so he's kind of standing in the sand a little bit. I feel like this gives it a little bit more depth. And I also shifted the baddies down so that they're kind of like on top of things as well. Actually, the flower was already like that. I had the flower sort of mispositioned this whole time. And I was like always in the back of my head, I was like, I gotta fix this one day. So I fixed this not by adjusting the flower, but by like adjusting literally every other sprite. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked with that. I think it just looks better. Like I said, it gives it like a little bit more of a depth to the ground rather than just like walking on like a flat cardboard background. So I just figured I would call that out in case you were like, wait, something is different. What changed here? So yeah, that's what changed. All right, I've been giving some thought for a while now about how to do the scoring in this game. And I said at the outset of this series that I was not going to do a score. And I stand by that mostly. So let me rewind a little bit. So in the original Kung Fu, the score is built up by several factors. One is whether or not you're using the punch or the kick when you hit a guy. So because the punch has like a shorter range than the kick, and that applies to our game as well as to Kung Fu. In the original game, the punch is worth more points, right? So as the guy gets closer to you, if you wait longer and you take a riskier move, you'll get more points for that. You're rewarded for that. The other things that factor into the scoring is how much health you have left at the end of the world and how much time you have left at the end of the world, or the level, I guess. We didn't put a time limit in our game, and I don't think I'm going to change that. We do have health, but I'm not sure that I want to use that to contribute to the score. And so what I'm thinking of is keeping score based on like a sort of a special attack that doesn't exist yet. But basically, counting only the trees, the guys that you kill using the special attack, as opposed to the regular attack. Now, I have in my head how I want to sort of allow you to use the special attack, but for now, what we're going to do is I want to just actually test the special attack thing to see how it feels. So I'm not even going to bother with the sort of like, but how do we get the special attack? I'm just going to like put it in there, and then I'll talk about how we're going to activate it like later, like how we're going to get to the point that allows the player to use the special attack, how they built up to it basically. So let me bust out some paint, and I'll show you kind of what I'm thinking in terms of special attack-iness. All right, it's paint time. So yeah, so right now, let's put our guy in the middle here. There's our guy. And we'll get some trees here. They look so harmless and innocent when they don't have like menacing faces on them. Anyway, so here's our guy, and he's surrounded by trees. That he needs to fight, and right now, sort of our combat range is quite limited, right? So we can really only hit guys when they sort of like come like to about at this point or at this point. So I thought it might be kind of fun. I want this to be a little bit over the top, right? So I thought it might be kind of fun to have like a projectile sort of weapon or something like that. And so I thought about, well, we're taking down trees here, so like a saw blade or like an axe might be fun. But then I don't know. I kind of wanted to just make it like graphically over the top. So I think what I'm going to do is just have kind of like just like a laser. Like it's just going to go like this, and it's going to be gigantic, and it's going to reach to the edge of the screen, and it's going to take out all the trees on that side of the screen. I think that'll be just fun and goofy, and yeah, kind of make the game feel a little bit more lively than just the sort of very minimal punching and kicking. So there's a couple of attacks. So right now, like we have the kick and punch move. So like normal attacks, we get kick or punch, and we'll call this like overdrive mode, the special attack mode. And here we'll have like full. Oh, let's call it not full. How do I want to call this? Maybe like double height. Can't spell. Double height beam. And what I mean by this is, normally when you're attacking, draw a flower here. When you're attacking, you can either sort of attack high, which would hit here, or you can attack low, which would hit here. And we do have baddies that we do have baddies that can only be hit low, like this guy. And we have baddies that can only be hit high, like this guy. And so you sort of have to like alternate between crouching and standing up to take out all the guys. So for the first attack, the double height beam, we'll just like render that all unnecessary, right? We're just gonna like allow the player to just take out everybody, high and low, indiscriminately, on whatever direction that the player is facing at that time. So one direction, but twice the height. And so you can probably guess what the other one I'm thinking of is. The other way I'm thinking of is just do this like bidirectional. Sure. Bidirectional beam. So for the bidirectional beam, we'll allow the player to fire in both directions. I'll have like smaller versions of the beam. But it'll only hit either high or low. So you'll still have to kind of like choose. Either you're going to hit both high, like this, or you'll hit both low, like this. Right, so you'll still have to make some choice. And so I don't know which button's going to map to which attack yet, but effectively, let's say, for example, when you hit the punch button, you'd use the double height beam. When you hit the kick button, you use the bidirectional beam. And that'll be kind of how the special attack works. So I'm not sure. I have kind of in my brain how I want this thing to look. I guess the best thing to do is probably to start coding. It's going to be interesting, right? Because we have this player state machine that talks about, whether they're punching, kicking, crouching, standing, and we sort of have to like layer everything on top of this, right? Because they're still going to be able to do all those states. It's just when they kick or punch, it might, if they're in normal mode, it'll either kick or punch it. If they're in overdrive mode, it might do one of these beams. So I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to approach this yet, but best thing to do in a situation like that is just to start coding. Before I get into the special move implementation, or the super move, or the overdrive, or whatever we're going to call it, I did a little bit of refactoring that I had been threatening to do for some time now, and that's related to the player's state machine. So you can probably see here, this is right at the top of the player file, and let me open a diff. It'll be easier to see. So you see on the left-hand side, I used to have separate sort of tables for each of the different frames. What I did was I changed that so that we have this top level frames thing, and then there's like sub tables for each of the states that we need to have animations for, or in most cases it's just like a single frame. And let me show you how the state changes happen now. Okay, right now I'm in the player's stand update function. So when the player's just kind of standing there, this is the function that gets called. So it's a little bit squished here. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. All right, I made the terminal much bigger for this bit. We're getting really into the programming side for a brief moment here. Anyway, you can see on the left-hand side, this is how the state changes used to be, right? And there's a bunch of stuff that I was changing one thing at a time whenever I changed the state. One was to change the state itself to like this string. So when the player pushes the punch button, we switch to the punch antic state. We set this state timer, which is kind of like telling the update function how long we want to be in the antic phase with this timing, which is like 0.1 seconds, I think the last 10th of a second, the last time we updated it. Setting the current frames to frames p antic, and I'm setting the since last state, which is going to be what's actually like compared to this guy here. I'm just like counting upward from last state to the state timer value before we switch states. So in any case, the details aren't super important, but there was like 4, sometimes 5 different things that I needed to change in order to change state. Now you can kind of look on the right. This is the new version where I'm just calling this change state function, and I'm passing in the name of the state as a string. So let's see what is going on there. Okay, here's that function. So you can see this is a method on the player, and I'm passing in the player itself as a reference, and this S is going to be the state name. So in our previous case, this would be like, p antic, I think it was, right? So we do the same thing. We set the player's state to whatever that state is, that S value. We set our since last state timer to 0 because we're updating the state, so no time has passed. And then we're setting frames current to the sort of subtable in the frames table, which if you recall, I did this. This is why I switched from doing like frames underscore p antic and frames underscore punch to frames underscore punch to having this this sort of nested table structure, because it allows me to use strings as keys to sort of index into this. So I'm setting the frames current to the subtable based on that state, which is p antic here. Same thing, we're setting state. I had state t. I decided to change it to state ttl. And I created this new timings table up here. And you can see there's some kind of like junk values in here. I could probably do this a little bit more elegantly by just doing a nil check before I set this. But this is just telling the player how long we want to stay in that state. I'm setting the frame index back to 1 so that it always goes to the first frame in the animation cycle where state cycle exists. And also this print H is here just for debugging. So I have another terminal open that whenever there's a state change, it just sort of prints the new state change out to the terminal, so I can see when the player is like walking and moving around, what's going on, like what state they're in, make sure that it works okay. And there's no new functionality as a result of this. All that's happening is exactly what was happening before. But this saved me, I think it saved me about 300 tokens to do this. So that was a worthwhile refactor, I think. And you know, just in case you doubt me, hold on. And just in case you doubt that, you know, that the thing still gosh darn works, he still does all the things that he did before, even without all those tokens. He'll even die if we let him. Everything looks good there. So yeah, that was a nice little refactor, saved me a bunch of tokens, and now I can start to focus more on the overdrive mode. All right, I'm gonna do a bunch of coding now, but I set the sprite view to be go go to I don't know, motivate me, inspire me, keep me rolling. I just scooped myself a huge bowl of ice cream, so hopefully that's motivation enough. But just in case, I've got the go go thing going on here. I don't even know what I did, but I tried to add the projectile and like the new state or whatever, and it's not drawing properly. But I don't even know why he's doing this, but he does this neat little hop now when I when I enable overdrive and have him punch. He just hops. He just hops. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I love it. I may see if I can keep that in. But anyway, for right now, it's just like you can see the OD up at the top there. It says Y right now for yes. So when I hit up, I'm toggling between overdrive and not. So no overdrive, he just punches regularly. But overdrive, he hops. And there should be a pink rectangle appearing, but you can maybe see that at the left edge of the screen. I'm getting a little bit. So my coordinates are messed up. I gotta fix that. I mean, yeah, sure. That owns. We'll just go with that. There's no collision built into it yet, so it's not doing any damage. But we'll work on that. Maybe I'll make it a little bit like not the entire height of the player, so that like, God, I love that hop. It's so good. Not the entire like height of the player, so that you can actually see the sprites that's hitting a little bit better. And probably I should draw it behind the enemies, so that when the enemies pass over it, they and their pieces, eventual pieces, will be drawn on top, and you can see the carnage that you are inflicting. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. So this is not the final form of the projectile. I'm gonna have it, you know, expand gradually, and maybe add some particles or something. But anyway, that'll work. Maybe this is a good place to add screen shake when we do the overdrive thing. We'll have it do a little screen shake. I also figured out why he's hopping, and you can probably tell by looking at the screen now, but when I was just kind of like really quickly slapping together this implementation, I just copied. I needed a frame for the punch antic in overdrive mode, and I just copied, like, I think I ended up copying the crouching punch antic, which is sprite 34, And because that sprite is a little bit smaller than the normal standing sprite, you can see here there's this gap at the bottom. When I draw it at the same y coordinate, it looks like he's hopping, and I kind of love this. Like, I think this looks freaking sweet. I don't want the projectile to be out at this exact point. I want it to not come out until the full punch animation. So that's something to fix. But I think what I'm going to do here is just like keep this as the antic frame and then create a new frame for the final punch that looks like he's like really following through like super hard. So it's just like this ridiculous jump punch thing. Yes, I think that is what I'm going to do with this. I'm pretty stoked about this. Yeah, it's a good start, I guess. I think the next thing to do is maybe work on getting this drawn a little bit more nicely and also drawing the final like follow through animation. All right, let's cut it there. I promise it's not going to stay a pink rectangle forever, but it will be for a little while. I'll get rid of it before you get sick of it, I promise. All right, thank you though for watching. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention. And stay tuned if you want to see this thing develop. We're going to make it look a little bit cooler and move a little bit cooler, and it'll actually have collision soon. So it won't be completely worthless. So that's it for now. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you next week.